Forget for a moment the image of the Russia-Ukraine war that may still linger in your mind from the early days of the conflict. Forget lightning offensives, tank convoys stretching for dozens of kilometers, or cities falling within days. The battlefield has fundamentally changed. This is no longer about who moves the fastest, but about who can endure the longest. This war is not a sprint, it is a marathon. And it is from a small village, one you may have never heard of, that we can see most clearly how this war is now being fought. That village is called Zelenoye. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has now entered a phase military analysts describe as a war of attrition. In this kind of war, victory is not decided by a single major assault or a dramatic breakthrough. Victory is determined by accumulation. Accumulated losses, accumulated exhaustion, accumulated pressure. Based on multiple battlefield reports, Russia appears to be forcing a tempo of combat that it fully controls. Looking at Russian military doctrine historically, this approach is nothing new. This is not about surprise, it is about constant pressure that never truly stops. Imagine a sledgehammer, not one swung once with full force, but one that keeps striking the same point rhythmically, relentlessly. Zelenoye is not Kiev. It is not a major city with high symbolic value. Yet, militarily, its value far exceeds its size. This village is part of Ukraine's defensive system in the sector leading toward Gulyaipol. Think of that defensive line as a series of interconnected gates. Zelenoye is one of the hinges. When that hinge breaks, the entire gate becomes unstable. By taking Zelenoye, Russia did not merely gain territory. It forced Ukraine to reorganize its entire defensive structure. This was not a heroic victory. There were no parades, no grand declarations. This was a functional victory, quiet, but highly effective. What stands out most about the capture of Zelenoye is what did not happen. There was no massive frontal assault, no waves of infantry like those seen in war films. Instead, the tactic relied on patience. Imagine you are a Ukrainian soldier in a defensive trench at Zelenoye. Day after day, all you hear is artillery. Not devastating strikes that end everything instantly, but constant psychological pressure. Drones are always watching from above. Slowly, the position becomes isolated. Ammunition dwindles. Supply lines are cut. Mental energy drains away. At a certain point, that defensive position becomes a small hell, extremely expensive to hold. Only after the position has been fully softened by artillery and drone surveillance do Russian ground forces advance. They do not come in large numbers. There is no dramatic charge, only small units moving forward methodically. Often, what they encounter is not fierce resistance, but positions that have been orderly abandoned. This is what is known as a quiet victory, no celebration, but the objective is achieved. And it is precisely this kind of victory that places Ukraine in its most difficult dilemma. If Ukraine chooses to hold its ground, the cost is measured in soldiers' lives and rapidly depleted resources. If it withdraws, territory is lost and psychological pressure increases. From the outside, withdrawal often looks like defeat. But for field commanders, This is not about courage or cowardice. They must think like ruthless accountants, calculating costs and returns for every meter of ground. Russia deliberately makes the cost of holding any position extremely high. Whatever choice Ukraine makes, hold or withdraw, both lead to long-term losses. This pressure does not come only from artillery and ground troops, but from the sky. Drones have become the clearest symbol of modern attrition warfare. Russia frequently launches swarms of cheap drones in large numbers. Not advanced or expensive drones, but simple systems produced in bulk. Their purpose is not always destruction, but to force Ukraine to react. Ukraine is forced to use very expensive and limited air defense missiles. Every missile fired is a small victory for Russia's attrition strategy. This is economic warfare taking place in the air. This logic of attrition is applied far behind the front lines as well. Strikes against energy infrastructure, fuel depots, and railways are part of the strategy. Physically, these attacks disrupt the state's ability to sustain the war. Psychologically, the impact is even greater. The message is clear: nowhere is completely safe. And every damaged facility reinforces Ukraine's dependence on external aid. Internationally, responses to the war are divided. Western nations condemn Russia and provide military and financial aid. But the flow of this assistance is not always consistent. Aid is often delayed by domestic political dynamics within donor countries. Russia, by contrast, holds a fundamental advantage: its domestic defense industrial base. It does not need to wait for foreign approval to sustain the war. This war is no longer simply about territory on a map. It is a war of national endurance, industrial, economic, and political. Every small village like Zelenoye is part of this larger calculation. In wars of attrition, the winner is rarely the one who starts fastest. It is the one who remains standing the longest and can continue striking. And the final question is no longer just who controls territory, but who can continue to function, to endure, and to hope under sustained, relentless pressure.